All right, we'll go ahead and call this regular City Commission meeting of January 22nd, 2018 to order. We'll begin with an approval of the agenda, and then Pastor Andy Cook from Bronson Road Baptist Church will be here to provide our invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. We have two presentations tonight. We have our employee spotlight, and then we have the Newberry Agritech Innovation Park. Then that will be citizens' announcements, either 2-minute non-controversial announcements. Then that will be followed by our consent agenda, which has 3 items on it: the January 8th, 2018 regular commission meeting minutes, the power cost adjustment, and the tourism product development grant agreement. We'll move on to public hearings and ordinances. Item A is quarterly budget review and budget amendment resolution 2018-03, legislative public hearing and second reading of ordinance 2018-02, the GRU gas franchise. And item C is legislative public hearing and second reading of ordinance 2018-03, FPU gas franchise. Then we'll move on to our agenda items. Item A is Lexington Park 2 Sandia Town Park Development Agreement. Item B is the Lexington Park 2 Champions Park Land Development Agreement. Item C is Electrical Services Contract Award. Item D is the Metropolitan Transportation Planning Organization nominee. Item E is the 2018 Annual Joint Alachua County City of Newberry Special Meeting. Item F is the Community Champions Corporation FDBA Federal Property Registration Corporation Agreement Amendment. Item G is Wild Spaces Public Places. Then we'll finally move on to comments: city manager, city attorney, city clerk, commission, mayor, and citizens before we adjourn. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as read? I have a motion from Commissioner McGee, a second from Commissioner Glanzer. Any questions or comments on the agenda as read from the dais? Any public comment on the agenda? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Pastor Cook, would you be so kind as to join us at the podium and lead us in the invocation, please, sir? Please remain standing for the pledge afterwards.
Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, God, we are just so in awe of your love for us and your love for this community, and we come to lift up our mayor and commission, our staff, and this whole community, asking your blessings upon them. We thank you, God, for how you have poured out such an incredible blessing in this community, and Lord, we thank you for it. We ask that you would continue to help us to grow and to unite together as one, that all things that divide us would be taken out of the way, and we would come together through the body and blood of our Lord Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Cook. Most folks don't know it, but we're related. My grandmother actually brought him into this world. I'll tell you that story another time. All right, we'll move on to presentations. We'll start with our employee spotlight. I think Brian, is Brian here? Yes, there he is. I knew I saw you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, we would like to spotlight one of the city's newest employees, Janine Miranak. She's started working for the City of Newberry back in October, and she is the staff assistant for the Planning and Economic Development Department. Janine is an alumna of the University of Florida's College of Journalism. Previously worked a number of places around Gainesville, CH2M Hill Engineering, as well as the Supervisor of Elections Office, where she had the privilege and distinction to be our Finance Director, Dallas Lee's supervisor in the previous life. She and her husband Mike are co-sponsors of the Pet Suite at Peaceful Path Emergency Shelter, and I'm getting a huge education on the world of Mini Coopers. Her and her husband each have their own Mini Cooper, and they're involved in a number of Mini Cooper organizations and do a number of Mini Cooper activities all over the country, and it sounds like soon probably in other parts of the world, up in Scotland. And so apparently that's a big, huge community, and I'm getting a real education on it. But anyway, Janine has only been here 3 months, but she's already drunk the Kool-Aid, and she's totally believes in Newberry, she says. And
it's a tasty Kool-Aid.
It's a tasty Kool-Aid, and we are very fortunate to have Janine on our team now. I'd like to welcome.
Ron, I have a question. Did she graduate from Newberry High School? She's our first employee spotlight that did not graduate from Newberry High School.
I seem to remember you saying that once before.
We won't hold that against her for too long. Welcome to the city of Newberry. We appreciate you joining us, and we appreciate you drinking that Kool-Aid. Yeah. All right.
Absolutely love it.
Well done.
Thanks.
All right. Well, don't run away, Brian, because now we'd love to hear about the Newberry Agritech Innovation Park.
Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Amy's firing it up. Basically, wanted to give you an update and show you the presentation that we have been giving to others in the outside community as we try to promote this concept in the broader community and gain support for it. And so I wanted to show the commission this presentation and see what y'all think as we move forward. So. We start the presentation with a brief video that was done for us back with Frankel. It's self-generating.
Click the button.
At least it's supposed to.
No way. This accident.
I was directed to embed the videos in the presentation, and sometimes it works, and some, there we go.
Monitors are asleep.
I'll let Amy take control of the PowerPoint for a moment, get it started. I probably messed
Just
it up.
minor
pushing the
technical difficulties, folks. We want to get it just right at home, so it'll all work out because it always does. If not, I think Brian could probably do it by memory at this point.
There we go.
There we go.
In 2002, Inspired Energy set up operations in North Central Florida. And so in 2004, when it came time for us to expand, we looked around for a suitable place. Newberry was the location we found that ticked all the boxes of location, infrastructure, and most of all, it had the full support from the City Council for establishing a manufacturing
Well done.
And we start with the intro video to give them a flavor of some of the more interesting things that are going on around Newberry and a flavor for the community. And so once that's started, then we also move on, give them a little bit of information about the manufacturing sector. As was mentioned in the video, we have the gourmet rodent, which oddly enough, we qualify as a manufacturer because they're manufacturing a product. Manufacturing a product is pets, reptile pets. As mentioned in the video, the largest producer of ball pythons in the world. They do at least 60,000 overnight shipments annually from their facility, and they export pretty much all over the world at this point. Also in our manufacturing sector, Inspired Energy, as you heard Dave Bagley talking about, if you've got an application that needs a specific size or shape or voltage for your batteries, they can create it. And one of the more unique applications right now is they are powering the astronaut health monitoring systems in the International Space Station. And they also export, here it says 75, but they've expanded even further, so now over 80 countries. And then the manufacturing sector in Newberry is also award-winning. Industrial replacement parts, as John Hartnett on the video was talking about, won the Manufacturing Association of Florida for small manufacturers in 2015, also the Gainesville Area Chamber Manufacturer of the Year, as well as the U.S. Small Business Administration National Award as National Exporter of the Year. And not listed up here, but they also, after this was created, they won the President's E Award for exporting because they've taken such great strides to increase their exports. And so very impressive there. Also over 80 plus countries. And so moving from the manufacturing sector into our agricultural sector, we like to say that agriculture is the heart of Newberry. The roots of Newberry are Newberry is deeply rooted in agriculture. Over 77% of our land in Newberry is zoned for agriculture. It's over 42 square miles. At last count, we had about 24 working farms in Newberry. It's part of our economic development strategy. We have objectives and goals to try to promote agriculture and maintain our agricultural base here. As we grow, we don't, the community's made it very clear we don't want to lose that, and so we want to support that. And we celebrate our agriculture in Newberry. We have the longest perpetually running Watermelon Festival in the United States, as reported by the Watermelon Festival Committee, since 1946, and so this will be our 72nd year. Some of the products grown in Newberry, a fairly long list. And then how that all comes into focus for the concept that we've been working on and that we're presenting is based on location and availability of a suitable location for a large-scale project. And so we present the information on the Economic Development Corridor Study. This was conducted by it was a joint effort with property owners along the corridor, as well as the City of Newberry joined together and hired the CH2M Hill to come in and do a study. Basically, they looked at the core from Newberry all the way to Jonesville. They identified 3 key areas for potential development. You've got the core area, which is over 1,300 acres, and actually that's just the ones that joined in. There's potential for even more, as well as an intermediate area and a gateway area. We're focusing for our concept on the core area, the 1,300 plus acres, and wanted to look at the potential scale of the development, what could actually fit in that location in the core development spot. And if with a little bit of reworking of the acreage, you could see that you could easily fit pretty much the entirety of the Progress Corporate Park and the university land over there, where Sid Martin and the Progress Park is, into the core area that we've identified. Which brings us to the actual concept, which is IFAS Newberry Agritech Innovation Park. Basically, the vision is to create an agritech park where you would have a public sector entity, presumably IFAS in the University of Florida, doing primary research that would then, through co-location of private sector manufacturers, would take those innovations and take those inventions created in the public sector and basically take them to market. And it's a model very similar to what has occurred over the last 30-some years with the Sid Martin in the biotech industry, only applied to the agri-tech industry. And so by doing that, so we think that this would be an excellent opportunity to grow the employment base in Newberry, but also to continue to try and strengthen and maintain and even promote the agricultural base that we have here in Newberry and the heritage that we have in Newberry. And so just looking at the potential site we've identified, if you take the 2 tracks here, you've got about 450 acres total for development. It's very close to downtown, within 1.5 miles. It's only about 13 miles from IFA's current location in the UF campus. And right now it's just in pasture and it's mostly cleared. If you compare it to our model, which we're looking at, which is Progress Park, they've only got 200 acres. And of course it's medical and biotech research. They've got 30 buildings, 157,000 roughly square feet developed right now. Just do some rough and dirty numbers as far as just the value of the real estate alone is about over $34 million, and which would equate in taxable income, and that's just the private sector development, excluding the public sector that's located there, the Sid Martin Center, comes up to potential a couple $100,000 additional to Newberry in terms of the millage tax, property taxes, and that doesn't even count the potential. Again, I think they have probably at least a couple $100 million worth of tangible assets that are also part of that mix, and would provide substantial tax revenue for the city in the future. And so, from the scale of the project, the Newberry site could very easily accommodate a project of the scale of Progress Corporate Park in Alachua, and still have a considerable amount of room to grow. And so, this is the core of the presentation as far as what we're trying to present as an opportunity. In our conversations with different parties, it's been noted that in addition to this being a great thing for Newberry, it would actually benefit the region as a whole, because it would help bring in additional venture capitalists and the background legal teams and things that don't currently have enough of a core to attract, but with yet a third innovation center focused on a different set of industries, could create enough of an impetus that would bring those additional resources in and benefit the entire region. And so we're excited. We continue to promote this. We're scheduling more appointments with different stakeholders and potential supporters, and so we appreciate your continued support, and if you have any suggestions or comments, welcome those as well.
I want to take this opportunity to thank Scott for his support on this project and helping. I think when you have a concept like this, it's really about getting in front of people and pitching it over and over and over again. And you might pitch it 100 times before you get somebody to bite. And you jumped right in and helped us with that, and we really do appreciate it. And I appreciate all the work that staff has done as well on this project. This has been a long time coming. Economic Development Committee, want to send out a big applause to those guys for all their hard work, and I just hope that we get some traction. Everybody we pitched it to seems to like it. They kind of get it. We just have to find the right fit. So, Commissioner Glandon.
Mm-hmm. Well, several years ago, when the seeds were planted for this project, or this type of project on the EDC, I'm just very thrilled to see it come this far, and I know all the hard work y'all have put into it, and looking forward to seeing it move forward. It's a really great project.
Commissioner, have any other questions about the concept? If you have any contacts that may want to do some agri research, send them to Brian. We'll set up a dinner. Commissioner Barton?
Brian, if you could just get us a list of folks that you have contacted already, so that we're not duplicating efforts.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Great job.
Okay. Could you also, I know we shared that first opening video. Could you send that out again, the link, so that commissioners could share that at various times with everybody, have it right there on their phone? Okay. Citizens announcements. Anybody have a non-controversial announcement, something you want to tell us about?
I will try to be non-controversial. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for your time. I'm Marlon Day, Library Manager at the Newberry Branch Library, Alachua County Library District. I'd like to announce that on February 3rd, we have the Romance Writers Showcase and Workshop starting at 10:30 a.m. We're very excited because we have multiple speakers, including a couple local authors, Rebecca Heflin and Terry Depew. Their books are available to check out at the library. They're going to be talking about writing romance. It's going to be a really nice program on Saturday, February the 3rd. On Wednesday, February 7th is the 100th day of school. It's been pushed back a little bit this year with all the hurricane days, but it is February 7th, and at the elementary school, traditionally, every year they encourage the children to wear 100 items on their shirt. This year, we thought we'd help out a little bit. On February the 6th, we're having a 100-day craftathon, so we'll have all our craft supplies out, and glue and hot glue guns and stuff for the parents to glue to decorate their items. They can come in on February the 6th at 3 p.m. They just need to bring a T-shirt or other garment, and that'll be going on all afternoon on February the 3rd. I'm sorry, on February the 6th, which is a Tuesday. Lastly, the high school internship application deadline for the spring semester is Friday. This is a paid 9-week internship, working 10 hours per week.
How are we on those?
I haven't got any.
Man, they're wait till the last minute. I tell these youngins.
Friday is, yeah.
Friday's the last minute.
Friday.
The last minute.
Friday is the last minute.
It's the internship program at the library, and it's paid. And I don't know that they've ever necessarily turned anyone down. It's a great entry-level spot. It's a good experience. All the interns, I've been sending kids for 5 or 6 years over there. They've all enjoyed it. They've all benefited from it. Some of them have moved on in that as a profession. So I will remind them that Friday is the last minute. So
Friday is the
they'll be
deadline.
walking in at 2:59.
Traditionally, we usually get an application or two on the last day.
Yeah.
With the Lions Club, I would like to announce that we have our yard sale the first Saturday of the month. It's going to be February 3rd. Spots are available if you'd like to contact Ken. We also have the Heart to Heart Valentine's Dinner and Dance is coming up this year. We're going to try to make this a fun event. It's going to be February the 10th at 6:30 p.m. Tickets are going to be $15 per person with dinner included. Dinner begins at 7. We have DJ and karaoke by Cowboy Mike. We're going to have live and silent auctions, door prizes, games, and a lot more. It's going to be here at the Municipal Building, and tickets will be available from any Lions Club members starting this week.
All right, wonderful. One more opportunity for folks in town to get out and do something with the adults. Go out for a little dance right around Valentine's Day. Madam Clerk?
Mayor, I just, while Marlon is here, I just want to convey my thanks, my gratitude for hosting the My City event.
Thank you.
It was quite a day. I think everyone enjoyed it. I know we had over 100 participants. And I also want to thank the staff, the elected officials who came out and joined us. But we hope to do this again.
It was a lot of fun, and it was really exciting to see you way up there in that lift, taking a picture.
He rocked it on me a little bit. I think
Was it?
there may have been some manager that put him up to it. But
You-
I got pretty high, and all of a sudden we started going sideways.
You were a braver man than I.
I was strapped in.
I
Yeah.
always joke that I stopped growing at 5'3" for a reason. Don't just
Mr. Mayor, that's called the harness test.
Yeah.
We were just testing to see if your harness would work.
Yeah. But I also want to add my thanks to you. That was a great event. I appreciate staff putting it on. The kids had a great time. I must have had 5 emails from grateful parents that thanked us, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but people don't really get in touch with you when they like something. It's usually the opposite. So to have parents take the time to reach out and say, hey, that was fun. My kids learned something, and it was good to meet some elected officials and some city employees and kind of hear about the town. So you guys did a great job putting it on, and we do appreciate it.
Thank
Special
you.
thanks to Ash as well.
Okay. Any other citizens' announcements? Here. Commissioner Martin.
I wanted to share that the 4th annual Father-Daughter Dance will be conducted, hosted by the Tin Can organization at Oakview. That's also on February 3rd at 5 p.m.
All right. Any further citizen announcements? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? I have a motion from Commissioner McGehee, a second from Commissioner Coleman. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion passes unanimously. And moving on to public hearings and ordinances, we'll begin with item A, our quarterly budget review.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dallas Lee, our Finance and Administration Director, will lead us in this discussion.
One day. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners. As you know, at the end of each quarter, we present a budget review and an amendment for the Commission to provide oversight on the budget. At the end of December, we are 25% through this year's budget. We actually start our fiscal year 19 budget process tomorrow, so we are already starting on next year's budget. And as always, these numbers are unaudited. To begin, these are your general fund revenues, basically where the money comes from. As always, the majority of your collections has come in property taxes and public service tax, communication service tax, followed by your license permits and fees, which would be your building permits, your franchise fees. We are on track with our revenues. We're about 32% collected so far this year. We tend to be up the first quarter due to property taxes coming in at the beginning of the year. In your general fund expenses, as always, public safety is the largest portion of our budget. We spent 40% of our expenses so far on public safety. That includes your fire department, your law enforcement contract, code enforcement, and the building department. The next largest portion is your general government, which includes almost everything else, yourselves, the city manager, city clerk, finance, HR, human resources, facilities, those things that makes the city turn. And then your next largest spending is on your culture and recreation department. This just breaks down that graph we just looked at, so it just gives you some of the numbers. As you can see, we're at 32.7% collected on revenues year to date, which is good. And then again, your general fund expenditures, and we're at 22.8% spent budget. And again, we're supposed to be at 25%, so we're spending a little bit below our budget, which is always good. In some of your smaller funds, in our capital improvement fund, which is your fire station, we have no revenue this year because we're spending fund balance from previous years. We haven't spent a lot of money just due to unforeseen circumstances. Your debt service fund exists this year to pay off the fire station debt. We've made one payment on the fire station. There's 2 payments this year, so we're halfway spent through the year there. Your Champions Park Fund, we are under collecting in Champions Park on our rents and royalties with the contractor, and we haven't spent any of our capital outlay in the Champions Park Fund. Diamond Sports Park. Diamond Sports Park is below in revenues, but it's also below in expenditures. At this point, it is about $10,000 in the deficit for this quarter. However, we expect to be at this point during the year. At the same point last year, we were $12,000 in the deficit, and this year we're under $10,000, so we are doing a little bit better than we were last year. And last year we did end in the positive at Diamond Sports Park. In your special revenue fund for the surtax for Wild Spaces, we have collected about a quarter of what we anticipate for Wild Spaces money. We've also invoiced the county and collected for the half of the county's grant for the purchase of the land out of Easton, and then we've spent $1,300 whole dollars on Wild Spaces money this year. In your electric fund, we're performing as anticipated. We're actually up in both your fees, rentals, and non-operating revenue, which is always good. However, in your sales, we're a little bit down, but we anticipate being there just based on usage. Will continue to increase, especially as some of these winter months continue on with higher usages. Your expenses look good in all your categories. We haven't spent a lot in capital outlay, but we have a lot of purchase orders outstanding, and I know you have an RFP to approve tonight, which will help spend that money as well. Your water wastewater funds are performing right on track. We have over-collected in our development fees, which is always good. We always budget low and collect higher than we anticipate. Any of those development fees at the end of the year that are surplus to any debt service payments we make go into reserves and help fund things like the State Route 26 project. You can't really see this, but this is your long-term debt schedule as of today. The only long-term debt payments we've made this year is that one on the fire station, which I mentioned earlier. We do have another debt payment due in February for the wastewater system, and then one following up in March. We do, like I said, anticipate making those payments, and we will end the year about $200,000 less in debt payments this year than we did last year, our outstanding debt. In the budget amendment that is before you tonight, we are adjusting your revenues to account for increases in solid waste franchise fees. This is the first year we're receiving those solid waste franchise fees with Waste Pro, so we're just adjusting those to actuals. They are higher than what we anticipated. We're also increasing Westfest sponsorships, and we're also accounting for the TPD grant, which I believe you just approved on your consent agenda. In your expenditures in the general fund, we are moving some money around to allocate funds to the Countryway Stormwater Engineering Report study that the commission approved at the last commission meeting. And we are also budgeting $49,000 to be transferred to the Capital Improvement Fund for the construction of the fire station, which is to offset some of the money we put into abeyance, which the commission approved at their December meeting. Additionally, in your enterprise funds, we are requesting that you amend the capital outlay budget of the wastewater department for a net allocation of $0, but reallocating some funds from some projects that came in under budget to replace some lift station pumps that need to be replaced in the water and wastewater department. And that concludes my presentation. If there are any questions.
Questions from the board? Very succinct summary. Thank you, Matt. Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Scott?
Mr. Mayor, if there's no questions, I'll go ahead and read this resolution by title only. This is resolution number 2018-3, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Newberry, Florida, adopting amendments to the fiscal year 2016-2017 budget and providing for severability, conflicts, and effective date. That should actually read 2017-018 budget, right?
That is
Dallas?
correct.
It says 2016 and 2017.
17-18 would be correct.
17-18, so we'll amend that in the final draft, Mr. Mayor, but the appropriate motion is to pass resolution number 2018-03.
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Farnsworth. Any other questions, comments? Any questions from the, is that a question, Commissioner Farnsworth? Or just stretching? Any questions from the audience? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the legislative public hearing, second reading of ordinance 2018-02. Scott, you want to go ahead and just read that one in?
I'm happy to do that, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 2018-02, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, granting to the City of Gainesville, a Florida municipal corporation doing business as Gainesville Regional Utilities, a non-exclusive franchise to use the public right-of-way of the City of Newberry for the construction, maintenance, and operation of a liquid propane or natural gas distribution system in the City of Newberry, providing for and prescribing the terms and conditions under which the said non-exclusive rights, privileges, and franchise may be exercised, providing for codification of same, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2018-02 upon its reading by title only.
Do I hear that motion? I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth, a second from Commissioner McGee. This is the second reading. We had some discussion on this at the first reading. Does the commission have any further comments or questions at the second reading? Does the public have any further questions or comments at second reading? Come on
Good
down,
evening,
sir.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I'm Dave Bolio from Gainesville Regional Utilities. I work in the office of the General Manager. And I just wanted to comment that this is a historic moment, and should you go ahead and approve this ordinance on second reading, you're really bringing additional choice to the community, which I think will be well served. And you're empowering the citizens of this community to explore new energy solutions. And also, I think it's a recognition that natural gas service can play a part in the economic development that you're looking for. On behalf of Ed Bilarski, who is our general manager, as well as all the employees who deliver natural gas service, I wanted to thank you for your confidence in us to deliver high quality and reliable gas service. And we are anxious and willing to be a part of the City of Newberry community. Thank you.
Thank you. Very articulately spoken. We couldn't agree more. Any other public comment? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Item C, legislative public hearing, second reading of 2018-03 FPU. Scott, you want to read that one?
Yes,
for
sir,
us?
Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 2018-03, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, granting to the Florida Public Utilities Company a non-exclusive franchise to use the public right-of-way of the City of Newberry for the construction, maintenance, and operation of a natural gas distribution system in the City of Newberry, providing for and prescribing the terms and conditions under which the said non-exclusive rights, privileges, and franchise may be exercised, providing for codification of same, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2018-03 upon its reading by title only.
I have a motion from Commissioner Glanzer, a second from Commissioner Coleman. Again, we had some discussion about this one at the first reading. Any further questions or comments at the second reading from the dais? Hearing none, any public comment on the second reading of this? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. We'll move on to our agenda items. First one is the Sandia Town Park Development Agreement. Brian, are you going to lead us through this one?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the second consideration of the revised development agreement for Lexington Park, which known as Sandia Town Park. That's a planned development. Basically, it was approved on first reading at the January 8th commission meeting, and this would be the second final reading and enactment.
All right. We went over this in pretty good detail the first time. Anybody have any questions that came up between the first and the second reading? For the folks at home, basically, the developer who donated the land to us to build Champions Park on is asking for an extension on his time in order to execute his developments. That's pretty much what this is talking about. Okay, Commissioner Martin.
I move to approve.
Okay, I have a motion to approve, and I have a second from Commissioner Farnsworth. Any public comment? I'm sorry, any other questions from the board? Any public questions or comment? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Gotta love second readings. They move quicker. All right. Brian, stay right there and lead us through the Champions Park Land Development Agreement.
Yes, sir. This is also the second reading of the extended development agreement for the additional 40 acres on the parcel that the city has developed, currently Champions Park. This would extend the city's deadline for commencement of the additional 40 acres of the 80 for 10 years. It was also passed on first reading on the January 8th commission meeting.
All right. Motion to approve from Commissioner Martin. Do I have a second? Second from Commissioner Glanzer. Any further questions or comments? This is the flip side. We've asked for an extension on our developing the second 40 acres. The developer has agreed to that. We gave him an extension on his development. He's giving us the same consideration. Any questions or comments from the public on this agenda item? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. And then we will move on to item C, Electrical Services Contract Award. Mr. Jones.
Good evening. On December 16, 2017, City of Newberry requested bids for the installation of electric system infrastructure. Bids were received and opened January 4th. Total of 2 firms that responded. Staff evaluated the bids and determined that both respondents were qualified to provide that service. Staff is requesting authorization to execute contracts with both firms to ensure availability of service on time-sensitive projects. Standardized contracts have been prepared and will be executed by both of these firms. These firms may be used for installation of electric system infrastructure on an as-needed, if required, basis per the terms and conditions of the executed agreements.
All right. Any questions on this? Commissioner Martin?
Mr. Manager, do you mind just reading into the record the two companies, please?
The two companies that responded were Hines Electric and Professional Services Group.
Mr. Jones, this is for services that we utilize on a fairly regular basis. This will speed up the bidding process, pre-qualifying these companies.
It accelerates the procurement process, but all particular jobs associated with this have to come back through the purchase order, purchasing policy process. So anything that exceeds the manager's threshold will come back before this body.
Okay. Questions from the dais? Should put a fast track to certain projects, help get them moving. Any questions, comments from the public on this electrical services contract award? Hearing none, do I have a motion? Do I have a motion? I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, a second from Commissioner Coleman. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. All right, item D is Metropolitan Transportation Planning Organization nominee. This is a board, I believe that has 12 members. Is that correct? 12 members. One of those members is an advisory, is a non-voting advisory position that has traditionally been appointed at the League of Cities. Since the League of Cities is an ambiguous body, in order to make sure that everything is happening on the up and up, we've asked the cities themselves to nominate directly a candidate for that board. Doug Jones has been the serving rural advisor on that. He's from Archer, used to be a mayor in Archer. I spoke with him today to see if he was willing to continue serving in that capacity. He says he is, and he would like to continue. It's a board that looks at projects that are 10, 15, 20-year projects, and so it does require some long-term commitment to being on there. There's lots of complex issues and those kinds of things. He is a non-voting member, but he is willing to continue to serve if this board wants to nominate and send. I believe it's how many other cities have already done this?
I'm not sure all the other cities have been asked to do it, and they have to be turned in by January the 31st, so we're getting close to the end.
Okay. He may have sent it by now, but I asked him if he would email each of you a letter just saying, hey, I've served on this board, I wish to continue serving on this board. This is the role that I play, and these are the fights that I'm fighting for the donut, for the small rural cities. Commissioner Martin?
I've come and spoken with Doug on a number of different occasions. I don't have any problem with his character or his education on these issues. I would like to, if the mayor wouldn't mind, asking Doug to come forward and introduce himself formally and kind of give a little bit of history of this and kind of have some expectations of return visits to give us some updates in person.
I think that's a good idea, and I think he'd be more than willing to do that. Great idea. Any other commissioner comments, questions? Somebody willing to put forth a motion to nominate?
I'll nominate Mr. Jones.
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin and a second from Commissioner Coleman. Any further questions or comments about the nomination of Doug Jones to serve on this planning organization? Any public comment about the nomination? He's an active citizen right now. He's not an elected official anymore.
It says here that it should be, the nominee should be from the municipal governing bodies. Does that matter? That he's not anymore, he's not an elected official anymore. I don't have a problem with it, but just want to make sure it complies.
That's a great catch. I guess we can follow up with county staff if they don't think so, but I think every other small city is nominating Mr. Jones. So.
Yeah. Does it say elected board or just boards? Because he serves on boards.
Submitted by municipal governing bodies, so
Well,
maybe it means we.
we are the ones that are
we're the ones
nominating.
nominate, got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't have to be serving on the board.
Right. Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion passed unanimously, and I will reach out to Doug to ask him to come before us as soon as he can. Okay, item E is the 2018 Annual Joint Alachua County, City of Newberry. I know it seems like we just did this, but I think our meeting was pretty late, and we're trying to be on the ball this year. So, Mike, you want to take us through what we're trying to accomplish?
Mr. Mayor, this is simply a save the date kind of item so that we can plan our date for meeting with Alachua County. I guess the new year prompts them to reach out to all small cities, and they try to go ahead and establish the dates they're going to have for joint meetings. Staff suggests the meeting on May the 14th because it's late enough in our year. They ask that everything be scheduled before June 1st, so we try to get on the latest available date before June 1 so we know more about our budget and the things we might be asking them for.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Coleman.
I just request that I sit next to Mike Byerly, please.
So noted. Commissioner Martin?
I always feel like we're a little crunched when we're trying to do it on a night that coincides with our commissions. I'd rather have a standalone date would be my preference.
I agree. These joint meetings used to be about one or two things that went pretty quickly, but the past 2 or 3 years they've seemed to carry on. So I think it's probably a pretty good idea to do a standalone, separate meeting. That way we can, oftentimes there's only 3 things on the agenda, but each item seems to initiate about an hour-long discussion. And that pushes our commission meeting into the wee hours of the morning. So be the 21st.
We could offer both.
Why don't we offer both? And two nights in a row. We like it. Yeah. It's a marathon session.
I'm
Right.
trying to recall, it seems like the last 2 years, this is the only meeting we've had, that we've not tried to hold a regular meeting behind that. Is that correct? We have not conducted any city business on this meeting night outside of what we discuss in that joint meeting. Just if it makes a difference to anyone, I know that, that they kind of run all together, but I know for the last 2 years, there's not been a regular city meeting, city commission meeting scheduled. So
Which
if
was a
that
good
plays
call
in-
because they both ran long.
Yes, they both run long. I'll do better. That's me. The past county manager told me last time, he said, we're going to be here till 11. And I said, no way, it's 4 items. We got this. And he was right, and I was wrong.
Well, I think I remember a 30-minute conversation with just me and Commissioner Byerly, so I'll try to be more brief as well. Commissioner Glanzer?
So if we don't do any business, that negates the need to have it on a separate night, right? Is that right? I mean, if that was the reason we're gonna have a second night, and we don't have, any business going on the night of anyway, so I don't see why we need to have a separate night for the meeting.
Mr. Mayor, we typically can work our agenda schedule so that we wouldn't have any business on the night. I think what we could do is try to lock in on the 14th, the Monday night, and then in the weeks prior, we could advise that there's a couple of urgent items, and we could plan to have the meeting on the 15th or the 21st as special meetings for this board if there are some items that warrant it. But we're happy with any of the...
So the manager's idea is to put the joint meeting on the 14th, and then as we approach it, if there's pressing items, we could call a special meeting for the 15th if needed. How's the commission feel about that idea?
Make a motion to do that.
Have
Have
a-
the regular meeting, have the joint meeting on the 14th, and if need arises, we could do it.
Okay. I have a motion from Commissioner Glanzer to schedule it for the May the 14th, with the caveat that if we have pressing business that brings us, if it's 1 or 2 items, we could put it on for the end. If not, we could have a whole meeting for the 15th, and I have a second from Commissioner Glanzer. Did I get the motion correct?
Yes, you did.
I got the second correct. Any questions, any other ideas about that, Commissioner Martin?
I would only interject the need for what would be our backup priority dates. If we're only offering the county one date, if they're not available the 14th, I'd go first in saying my priority would be the 21st, and then the 15th being the 3rd. As typically there ends up being some sort of team practice or something I'm involved in on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I do not want to miss that meeting.
It's not a bad idea. I mean, they've asked for May, and they usually, if we plan it this far out, they align to our normal schedule because they know that they're full-time, we're part-time, so they try to, but it would, everybody have a head nod for that backup plan. That's all, that's fine, we have a head nod for that. Okay. Is that all you needed for that?
That's it.
We don't need it. We'll talk about possible agenda items for that meeting at another time. Did we have a vote? I have a motion and a second. Any public comment on the joint meeting date? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion passed unanimously.
To your point, Mr. Mayor, though, between now and then, we will start thinking about agenda items, topics we'd like to discuss. So if you, as you run across things you think would be a good idea, send an email, and we'll start putting them on a list.
All right, Brian, as you're making your way down, you're going to lead us through this Community Champions Corporation agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the commission may remember, the Community Champions is the company that we had contracted with to administer the city's vacant foreclosed property registry. In the contract with them, it offers an opportunity for a 1-year extension with the agreement of both parties, so they're requesting that extension. And then also as part of the amendment, I guess they've changed their name from Community Champions to yeah, and so it basically assigns the contract to the new company, the wholly owned subsidiary under Community Champions. Actually, I guess is the gist of it. And so that's basically the request for the amendment. And just as an aside, in 2017, the value of the registrations to the city of Newberry was $13,800. And so even though a lot of the banks have been clearing their foreclosed properties, there's still enough of them out there that it's generated almost $14,000.
And they generate their own costs. Do I remember that correctly?
They
are not costs, but
the total fee is $300. They take $100 and they forward $200 of that registration fee to the city. The $200.
Okay. All right. Questions from the board? Remember this item? Yes, we do.
Make a motion to accept their name change.
Approve the amendment.
Approve the amendment. Okay. I have a motion. And a second. I have a motion from Commissioner Glanzer, a second from Commissioner Farnsworth. Any questions or comments from the dais? Any questions or comments from the public? Hearing none. Commissioner Coleman? Commissioner McGee? Commissioner Farnsworth? Commissioner Martin? No. Commissioner Glanzer? Motion passes 4-1. Okay. Wild Spaces Public Places. Travis, will you make your way down?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I am here to present our plan for Wild Spaces Public Places regarding the projects and the funding. I want to note before I dig into it, there's going to be a lot of information presented, and it's our intent to give you the plan for the funding, the plan for the projects, but to let it sink in and then maybe at our next meeting make a decision on it. So just a quick recap. I think we all know what it is, but in 2016, Alachua County residents approved a referendum creating a half-cent sales tax, dubbed Wild Spaces Public Places. The half-cent tax was earmarked or is earmarked for recreational expenses. The revenues will be distributed between Alachua County and the 9 municipalities in Alachua County. Preliminary estimates indicate that we will receive $2.4 million in revenue from the sales tax. In 2017, we received an additional $400,000 in funding from Alachua County for the construction of the Easton Newberry Sports Complex multipurpose fields. And our total estimated wild spaces public places revenue is $2.8 million. And our project locations, Easton Newberry Sports Complex, Jimmy Durden Park, Freddie Warmack Park, Martin Luther King Jr. Community Center in the park, Lois Fort Park, and the municipal building. This list reflects the City Commission's desire to invest in our current infrastructure and our parks rather than new buildings. And a lot of these lists, as we go through them, you'll notice that a lot of it is generally the same stuff: infrastructure, roads, drainage, fencing. It's all common to most of the facilities. But real quickly, we'll go through them. Easton Newberry Sports Complex, interior roads, parking improvements, drainage and utility infrastructure improvements, lighting in the parking areas, concrete walkways, field lighting, irrigation well in a system, maintenance shop relocation and renovations, bleachers with concrete pads, RC park renovations, outdoor restrooms, storage, batting cages, and benches and trash receptacles, with a total budget of just over $2 million.
What percentage of the total money from Wild Spaces is dedicated to these infrastructure improvements?
It's about 2/3.
Not at Easton. The infrastructure improvements. You're right, though. It's the same
It's
thing.
close.
My mistake. About 2/3 for infrastructure improvements.
Next, we'll go to Jimmy Durden Park. Again, parking area improvements, renovations to the baseball field, both of them. Basketball court renovations, restroom renovations, concession renovations, concrete walkways, playground borders, security, parking lighting, bleacher replacement with concrete pads, fencing improvements. We will re-roof the existing structures, benches, trash receptacles, lighted beach volleyball courts, and multi-purpose fields. The beach volleyball courts is one of 3 things that will be new.
New things.
And that total budget is just over $300,000, $311,400. Freddie Warmack Park, same thing, parking area improvements, baseball field renovations of that basketball court as well, wastewater connection or drain field reconstruction. That's on the single restroom. Playground equipment, concrete walkways, bleacher replacement, concrete pads, lighting. We're going to renovate the meeting room and the kitchen in the Freddie Warmack building. Signage and landscape, tables, benches, and new trash receptacles. Additional fencing improvements, and we will re-roof the structures. And that total budget is just at $255,000. Martin Luther King Jr. Center, we will renovate that basketball court as well. Playground equipment, restroom facilities. Those 2 will work in conjunction with the FERDAP grant that we currently have. Concrete walkways, parking area improvements, fencing improvements, signage and landscape, benches and additional trash receptacles, and security parking lighting. That is at $167,200.
Commissioner McGee.
I'm glad you brought up the FERDAP grant. Are we holding off on that, using that FERDAP money to combine with this so we can knock it all out at once, or?
Can I answer that and
Yes,
be
sir.
a smart behind?
Yes, sir.
The state of Florida is helping us hold off on
Okay.
expenditure of those dollars. But I think we're
there now.
We're ready to go.
Yeah, we're ready to go.
Okay. I was just curious. I know we had talked about it in years past. Just wonder what.
We're just working on year 3 for 1 grant. Is that correct?
Right, that's correct. But we're ready to move forward now.
Travis, on the MLK, the basketball court renovation, is that just the actual court renovating, or?
Yes, sir, that's just the court.
Okay, so the cover didn't make it into
No
this
cover.
round. Okay.
For Lois Fort, we're going to do parking area improvements, signage and landscaping, additional concrete walkways, trash receptacles, park benches, and the amphitheater for $69,000. And lastly, the municipal building. We will do kitchen renovations. We will refinish the floors in there, add additional storage closets, and renovate the restrooms. Interior paint, we need to repair some of the walls as well. Roof fascia, replacement and painting. We will improve the parking area, add additional signage, improve the sidewalks, the drainage, and the dumpster area. We will replace the roof with metal roofing, and we will add some landscaping and additional lighting.
Can you go back to the lowest floor part before we get too far? What kind of signage are we looking at adding over there? Is this the rules and regulation signage
Well,
policies we went through?
We're going to do the rules and regulation signs, and we're going to do park identification signs as well.
Okay. Trash receptacles, is that just more of? Because I'm getting more complaints lately about littering and those kinds of things. Is that largely because we don't offer enough trash cans out there? Or
Actually,
there's some character issues there as well for...
We recently replaced most of our trash receptacles out there with some really nice ones. I think it's probably a little bit of both. But we have, I think, 6 out there now. So maybe adding some and relocating them to the correct places.
And our lighting, is it on out there all night long now?
It's on a photo cell.
Okay.
So they're on all night.
All right. Commissioner Glanzer?
Will we have that amphitheater ready by the West Fest?
Whether you guys approve it.
Oh,
Right.
I mean, if we approve it tonight, you have time to still do that.
We've had a lot of conversation on that, and I think after today, I don't know that we'll have it ready. Still planning.
I think the decision's been made that if we were to make it ready by this year's West Fest, too many other projects would sacrifice. And we just have, we don't have as many project managers as we have projects. And so staff recommends that we not try to complete that amphitheater after looking at our other project loading. We discussed it this afternoon.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
A question on the municipal building. On the refinish the floors, I've been told that those floors will be refinished so many times that the wood is very thin and that it couldn't be refinished anymore. Is that?
I would probably disagree with that.
You would disagree?
Yeah, I had a company come in, I believe it was last year, and they gave it a general cleaning, but they said that it would be no problem to come in and refinish if that's the direction we went.
Okay. Go ahead, Travis.
And $86,000 for municipal building. So on to the project funding plan. This is just a roll-up of what we just went through, total of $3 million. And we have 3 options here. The first one is pay-as-you-go. Second one will be commercial loan, and staff recommends that if that's $2 million or less, that's their direction. And then number 3 would be bonding it, and staff would recommend that being for the full $3 million.
Okay. Does that conclude your part, or you want us to discuss that before you? Okay.
I have more. So to go over the first one, the pay-as-you-go plan, we have a pros and cons list. The pros of that would be it would minimize the risk of reduced revenues, potential interest earnings, no loan fees or no loan interest, potential for grant opportunities, and less project management intensive. Cons would require 8 years to build out the projects. There's a potential loss of economies of scale because, as you noticed, most of our projects, they're common to all the facilities. And say park benches, trash cans, paving roads, concrete, fencing, lights, roofing, bleachers, the wells, around $2 million, and that's 10 RFPs. So they're all pretty common, so potential loss of economies of scale. And then less project continuity. The second and third option, commercial loans and bonding, pros to that would be better economies of scale pricing, a lot of projects that are common, project continuity, and it would enable us to complete the projects at a quicker rate. I believe we would be looking at a 4-year build out if we went that direction. Cons, there's a higher risk of reduced revenues, loss of potential interest earnings, loss of potential for grant opportunities. We wouldn't have time to apply for them. And project management intensive, may require additional staffing. And there are fees associated with the loans and the bonds and interest costs. Questions?
Okay, Commissioner Glanzer.
Did you go over the bonding advantages? Did I miss that one?
Bonding?
I think it was wrapped
It was-
into the
okay.
commercial loans.
I mean, my comment on that would be, I mean, if we have to wait 8 years, two things are gonna happen. Prices are gonna go up, and what you gave us as a budget's not gonna be realistic anymore. And the second thing is, in 8 years, some of those things will deteriorate more than they are now, and so they'll cost more as well in the long run. So my option would be a bond. I mean, that makes sense to me, because I think if you get it now, even if you have to pay money on it, it's gonna be a lot less than what you're gonna incur by waiting 8 years for some of those issues to get done.
Travis, do you have any idea of average bond rates, loan rates right now?
We do. Dallas, can you help me with that?
We have been looking at some commercial loans in some other areas, and they're hovering in the low 3s right now.
Is that
Plus,
your-
if you go with a bond, there's also bond counsel fees, bond origination fees.
All right. Commissioner Glanzer, or Commissioner Farnsworth?
If you borrow the money and how are you gonna be paying it back? What monies are you gonna be using?
If we were to bond the funds, we would ask that the commission pledges the revenue from the wild spaces surtax. However, given that the wild spaces surtax is kind of an amorphous tax, meaning that it's a sales tax, so if next year the economy were to take a downturn, the sales tax would generate less funding. It'd be my anticipation that a bonding agency would require us to pledge an additional revenue against that bond in case the surtax weren't enough to generate the debt service. So we would have to pledge some additional revenue, probably either your half-cent sales tax in your general fund or some other general non-ad valorem tax.
Dallas, is there some mix here that we could bond a percentage of the anticipated so you don't get into the...
It doesn't make, from a financial standpoint, a lot of financial sense to bond about less than $3 million just because of all the loan fees that go with it. There is certainly the opportunity to take out some sort of a commercial loan like we did with the fire station, mixed with some use of general fund reserves and a pay-as-you-go option. But for the full bond, just because of all the hoops and judge and court and everything you have to go through, it doesn't make a lot of sense for less than $3 million.
I
So we do the
apologize,
whole
Commissioner
project.
Farnsworth, I cut you off.
If you go to pay, of course, there's gonna be interest charges with the bond or the commercial loan. Are you allowed by law to use the money you get from the wild spaces thing to actually go towards paying interest?
Yes, sir. As long as the debt itself was for the recreational purposes, you can pay the associated debt service cost with the surtax.
Commissioner McGee?
I'm seeing here, the preliminary estimates that we will receive 2.4 million in revenue from the tax. I understand, the 2.8 because of the grant, but you're saying we need to be over 3 for the bond. Is that because we're being very conservative with our numbers, or?
The 2.8 is how much we anticipate collecting in just the surtax. Our budgeting plan included us earning interest on those funds, as well as some of the grant revenues. 2.83 million. If the commission were to decide to bond 2.8, the difference between 2.8 and 3 million is pretty negligible in the grand scheme of things. So we could do a 2.8 million. The reason we said 3 million is just because that's where your projects come. So if the commission were to decide to go ahead and bond all the projects out, we would do that.
Further questions from the dais? Commissioner Martin?
We have remarked time and time again about being fiscally conservative on this commission. I don't think going to commercial paper or bonding supports that endeavor whatsoever. We're currently hovering almost about $3 million in debt right now, and to think about doubling that is absolutely atrocious and completely irresponsible, in my opinion. I also think that the projects list does not pursue our endeavor of minimizing additional cost centers. Splash Park being one. I don't remember anybody talking about volleyball courts at Jimmy Durden Park. I don't know where you're going to put 2 tennis courts at Lois Ford Park on a slope. That's $55,000 right there on the 2 tennis courts, which plus another $12,000 in lighting. I've never had one citizen ask me about beach volleyball or ask me about tennis courts. And I just think that money right there could be spent a lot wiser in some of the other things that we need. I don't know if, okay, we have a parking lot need at Easton. Is that included in the interior roads and parking
It
improvements?
is. The parking lot is included. As for the tennis courts, those aren't actually budgeted items for Lois Ford. The tennis courts, those aren't.
That was just the grand list
It was
of
just
all
the
the
grand
ideas
list.
that got thrown
Yes, sir.
out there, but didn't actually make it.
No, sir.
Perhaps it could be a little more clear in the backup material. We'll try to differentiate.
Oh, because there's just no mark there as a 1 or a 2 or anything like that?
Yes,
Is that what you're saying?
we
Okay.
had a grand list of projects, and then
Okay.
after meeting with you, we estimated what the cost would be, and after meeting with the boards, we either funded them by saying we wanted 1 of them or 2 of them,
Okay.
or we didn't. And so things like the splash park, the gymnasium, the additional gymnasium at Easton, and
Okay.
the tennis courts were not funded.
Okay.
That concludes your comments, Commissioner. Commissioner Coleman, did you want to?
This is directed for Dallas. What would the origination be? Usually on a commercial loan, you're probably looking anywhere from 0.5% to 1%. Am I correct?
Yes. However, we tend to get our origination fees waived because people want to do business with us. So we have not paid origination fees in most of our loans, but I have not done a lot of research into what those costs might be. I know our fire station loan, the origination fee was $200.
Really?
Because the
Municipality.
3 of the banks that offered waived those fees for us.
Yeah, because we could get up to $15,000 to $30,000 in origination fees if we're on that. That's pretty tough. Kind of hard to swallow if you want to know the truth of it. Only thing I'm looking at here is that we've made a list, and I mean, all honesty, we all might not be here in 7 to 8 years, and here we've done so good at going in the right direction. So once again, I'm on the fence here. Should we go with a loan, or does it outweigh, losing the direction if somebody ce gets up here and says, this is not the way I want to go with it. That's the only problem with paying as we go.
And Mr. Mayor, on the pay-as-you-go and the commercial, and the commission could do some sort of a mixture.
A hybrid. Okay.
Repeat that again?
So my question was, could we do a hybrid between these? And Dallas is revamping his answer and saying,
You can't with the bond.
can't with the
but
bond,
you could
but
do a
with the
hybrid between
loan,
one and
with the loan and the pay-as-you-go, there might be some possibilities for a hybrid approach. You want to? I think Commissioner McGee's been trying to get in, then Commissioner Glanzer.
I just kind of want to piggyback on what Commissioner Coleman was saying. If this was 8 years ago, and this money was put before us, we might be looking at a splash park. We might be looking at another community building somewhere here within the city. That's the one thing that concerns me is the direction that we have been moving toward, either finishing projects or concentrating on infrastructure, concentrating on existing buildings. that could change. I mean, it could flip in 2 or 3 short months from now, and we could have a completely different mindset on this board. I would hate to see the work that we have put in over the past 4 years, not building all the fancy, flashy stuff, but trying to take care of the core issues that we have. I would hate to see that all get kind of washed away. Potentially, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that's the one big hang-up that has me thinking. And I agree with Commissioner Martin what he's saying about, this isn't the most conservative way to be, but I still go back, in saying that, I think about it, and I really don't want to waste an opportunity to take care of a lot of issues that we have, because they're just going to get worse. And I think the pay-as-you-go, if we could afford it, if everything was in order, that would completely make sense. But I'm kind of like Commissioner Coleman. I'm torn, because I just don't want to see the work that we've put in, potentially just kind of go up in smoke. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Commissioner Glanzer.
Well, we're the board now, and we have come up with this list, and that money is there, and it could increase next year and not diminish. I mean, we could be in a lot better. They could collect more tax next year, not less. And I just want to, emphasize again that the prices are going to go up. If we don't do it now, this money's not going to cover it. It'll cover even less of it, if we spread it out over 8 years. And I strongly feel like we should get them done, get these things done that we have, that money's there for now,
Travis, while the commission is kind of milling over the comments that everybody has made, could you talk to us a little bit more, because the one pro that you had in terms of the commercial loans or the bonding that really stuck in my mind was the economies of scale. So we have lots of projects, lots of different parks. Let's say concrete, right? We want to lay some concrete at 3 different parks. So what you're saying is if there was a way for us to either bond the money or do a hybrid between pay-as-you-go, we could contract with one company and say, well, we're not doing this small project here. We're doing 5 small projects all together, and we get a better price.
Yes, sir, and we would do that on several items. The park benches, trash cans, we'd put that out there for every park, and we'd find the product that we want, and we'd put that out. Paving roads, parking lots, we would do that at I think all of our parks need some attention there. So we would bid that out as a large-scale project. Same with the concrete, that's going everywhere. We'll basically give them, this is how much we have, and they'll provide a bid. And it goes down the list. I mean, fencing, lighting, roofing, bleachers, the irrigation wells. I mean, they're all very similar.
I know that it would require a whole lot more math and data research and that kind of stuff to give me the answer to this question. But in your experience, could you give the board any guidance about a reasonable expectation for cost savings when you're talking about economies of scale on something like concrete? Are they talking about 10%, 15%, 20%?
I mean,
potential?
Probably, Mr. City Manager would probably have a better answer for that, but I would believe it could potentially be 10%. I mean, we're looking at, for concrete, a rough estimate was, say, $270,000. And, I mean, if you broke that out into smaller scales, I would imagine that would probably be a good number, 10.
So if 2/3 of this money is going to infrastructure needs that will have to be paid for at some point in time, would it be possible for the hybrid formula to somehow take that into account and say, well, we're going to take a loan for this part that we were going to have to do at some point anyway, because those expenses would come at some point in time anyway. The new things, we're going to try to do that pay-as-you-go when that money comes in. That might be making it too complicated, but just throw that out there. You guys can think about that without responding. Further comment from the dais, Commissioner Farnsworth.
Well, I, for one, kind of like the idea of the tennis courts.
He's always been a secret tennis player. Right? It comes up.
I love tennis. Can you give me an idea of how much interest we'll be paying on the 3% bond?
No.
Okay.
Not right
I can
now,
take
but I
3
can-
million times it by 3%,
You have to get into like the amortization.
but amortization.
I will email you guys after this. I'll run some numbers on my computer and get back to you.
Okay. And that would kind of give you an idea of how much we're actually spending towards interest versus the possibility of cost savings in the long term.
Commissioner McGee and then Commissioner Martin.
So where are we at as a board on the plan? I mean, is everybody okay with the plan? Because I see, these are just recommended actions. We don't have to approve the finance plan tonight. I mean, I think, me personally, I'm fine with the project plan. I think that it's solid. It addresses all the issues that we have. I mean, I'd love to get started on the finance, but
Well, I think, we've had workshops on the project plan. We've had meetings on the project plan. I mean, this list we've gone over it. We've taken public comment. So in my mind, the list is finalized. We've done that part. So to the commissioner's questions about, the future, I mean, we can't see the future. You can't control the future. But in my mind, that's been a fairly exhaustive process. I don't remember exactly how many workshops we've had on it, but the plan is pretty well set. So the last question is, how do we go about executing these projects? What's the best reasonable method to get the best bang for your buck and to get started on these kinds of things? How many years would we, if we went with the pay-as-you-go, Travis, how many years would we have to wait before we would have enough money to get started on something?
Well, we would just get
Start
started.
doing little things.
Right, correct.
But some of those are big things. So how would we, if we wanted to pay, we wanted an economy scale, we wanted to do all the paving, and we want to wait until we have, 1.2 million, 1 million for the paving. Is that 2.5 years before we would be able to move on that?
It'd probably be year 3 if you wanted to go straight
Straight
where
pay as you
we had
go.
to have enough money. Like I said, you could dip negative a little bit and ride on your reserve, but we don't want to go too far in the negative. Also, according to my very quick calculations, Mr. Mayor, a 3% interest rate on a $3 million bond would be about $400,000 in interest over a 10-year period.
Okay. 400,000 of interest over a 10-year period. Okay. Commissioner Glanzer?
But wouldn't we be paying, well, I guess that doesn't make sense, paying down as we go, but that would be part of the payments. I mean, we would pay at bigger chunks than spreading it out over 10 years equally, because well, I guess that's what amortization is. Never mind.
Back to
It depends how
Commissioner
the commission wants
McGee's, back to Commissioner McGee's question. My interpretation of the answer to that question was the list has been gone over exhaustively at this point, hammered out, argued over. Everybody's had their chance to kind of lobby for different things. Could I at least get a head nod across the board that there's at least a majority consent that that's accurate, that the list that's on, okay. So, and that's not the exhaustive list that's in your backup material. That's the checked items that made it through that process. And you can see by the exhaustive list that we talked about all kinds of things before we got to these are the final things that we're going to push for. Okay, so you guys want to open up to public comment while you continue? Anybody still have questions for Travis, our matter? Does staff have any last points they want to make?
I do not.
Okay. Open up public comment or? All right, public comment on wild spaces, public places. How do we go about executing these projects? We've got 2 members of the public here, so, well.
I'll go. Jim Stainfield, citizen. To answer Jason's question about worrying about the future, so far our elections, our citizens have been fiscally conservative because they've been voting that way. I can't see that changing. I think we're going to have fiscally conservative citizens all the way down the line, and I think they're going to vote for that in the future. So I think you don't have to worry about what they're going to do in the future, or how they're going to change things. It bothers me that we're looking at spending $400,000 on a $3 million project when this is found money we were going to spend on just parking lots and things. So I wouldn't want to go into debt for this. I think you ought to relook at the list, and if there's $400,000 and you want to do this, then whack $400,000 out of that list. My opinion.
Further public comment. Okay. If the list is finalized, the other answer to the second question is, do we have to decide on the financing tonight? Is this something the commission can go back and now that we're not in a rush to get the amphitheater done for Westfest, we have some time to stew this over and think about it?
And yes, and we would prefer that. The trying to construct the amphitheater before Westfest would have required immediate action. Staff recommends against that. We could bring it back at the next meeting or any meeting that you ask. We would like to try to get it done sooner than later, try to get it finalized sometime in February or March.
It sounds to me like you have a commission that is seeing the pros and cons that you presented to us. So good job on the presentation. I think what I would like to see, because I'm still stuck on that economies of scale, so if there's a way to make a significant amount of savings, I think that hybrid concept shouldn't just be chucked out the window and we end up spending 20 or 30% more on $3 million because we piecemeal out small projects and we equally end up into the same boat as spending $400,000 in the interest rate. So I think we need to spend a little bit more time figuring out how can we efficiently use that money so that if there is an economies of scale question and it makes sense to borrow a piece of that money to get that economy of scale savings, we utilize that and we recognize that while trying not to spend $400,000 of this 2.8 in interest that's going to take us 4 or 5 years to do all these projects anyway. Was that Commissioner Coleman?
Well, when this came up during the election, I know, I'm assuming here, but I think 4 out of the 5 here didn't even vote for this, and most of the people in the public that were out here were not for this tax the way it is. So, if this would not even have came through, we wouldn't even be dealing with this. So I'm just going to put it out here that I'm not for borrowing any money for this tax at all. If they want to send that money to us to spend, we'll spend it as we get it. That's where I'm at.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
And I guarantee you in 8 years, they're gonna have another
wild spaces, public places.
Public places.
Yeah. Matt?
Mr. Mayor, just so the commission's also aware, to the economies of scale question, in most of the items that we could get economies of scale on, with the exception of the paving, we would plan on doing economies of scale projects even with the pay-as-you-go. We would
just wait longer.
The bench project, I think, I don't remember, it was like 60,000. We get $29,000 a month in Wild Spaces funding, so we could pay for that in 2 months, and we would do all of those projects at one time. We would do all the trash cans at one time. So anything we could do economies of scale of with the pay-as-you-go, we would. The only one I think we would have a really hard time with is the paving, which is, I think, $1 million.
Okay.
But we would make sure we
Well, I think when you guys come back to us, maybe have some numbers on that. What would that look like if we wanted to wait? How long would we have to wait? Could we take a piece out of every month and put it aside for those kinds of options to the commission? Commissioner Farnsworth?
Just kind of curious, how's the money distributed? Is it monthly or?
We get a check every month.
Every month?
Yes, sir. So we've been receiving a check since January of last year.
Commissioner Martin?
We're talking about we're not wanting to bind another commission. We're not wanting to bind voters. Saddling them with a $3 million budget just so we can have what we want now does just exactly that. I would hate to think that we take that opportunity away from not only future commissions but future citizens. and I don't want to bind them with that sort of a loan, particularly something that's going to double our debt. I will reiterate that the Wild Spaces Public Places money is not guaranteed, but a $3 million bond and the debt service associated with that absolutely will be guaranteed, not only on ourselves, but for citizens here in the next 10 years. And it just, I don't want to be terribly short-sighted here and jump on this. I understand the economies of scale and those sorts of things, and those are great bells and whistles to give campaign talks and slogans and Facebook posts and that sort of thing. But the idea of doubling the city's debt for what truly amounts to wants versus needs, because what happens when we need something else or something else comes along? I see Newberry as a very different city potentially in 8 years, and I think it's incumbent upon us to show the leadership and not dangle this carrot and go too far down that road. Thank you.
Commissioner Glazer?
For the record, I just want to say that I made my comments on bonding before I knew it cost $400,000. So I may rethink that, and I just want to let you know that those comments were made flippant. I didn't know it would cost $400,000.
Well, it doesn't sound to me like that's an option from anybody up here anymore. So I appreciate those comments, but it sounds like that's not where we're headed. I think we have one more public comment.
My only thing is, if we're going to incur debt, I'd rather we incur infrastructure like water, wastewater, not this kind of stuff. That's what we should be looking at. And look at debt. So, there you go.
Any further questions or comments from the board? Any further questions or comments on this from the public? Okay, so we're going to bring this back to us at the next meeting.
Yes, sir. If that's the commission's request, we'll
Plenty
bring
of
it up
time
at the next
to
meeting.
come up with some other options and ideas, proposals. Tell us how it would look like if we pay as we go, what we could get done, what would be reasonable. And I'd like also, when you guys come back, to focus on our ability to manage those projects in that timeline, between the difference between pay as you go. That sounds obviously like it would be the easiest in terms of project management. But if we wanted to move quicker on one piece, do we have the ability at our current staffing level to do that as well? So you can be very clear with the commission about what they can expect out of staff too.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, and that brings us to comments. Begin with the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to, initial comment is I just wanted to share publicly, I thought staff was very on point with all their presentations all night. Great job. Thank you guys. Did a great job. AV system worked really well too. Thank you. We had a really nice Martin Luther King Day of Service celebration Monday a week ago. Had a nice turnout. Had really nice speakers to share with us about the importance of community and service within a community. And just so thanks to everybody that helped in the planning. That was Amy, that was Concerned Citizens of Newberry's, that was Latasha, Travis. There's a lot of people that got involved in that, but thank you all. It was a really nice event. We transmitted grant applications to the Water Management District last week for 2 projects. You gave us authorization to do that. Just wanted to let you know that the Alachua County Board of County Commissioners held a special meeting last Monday to authorize the transmission of 2 letters in support of our applications. I'll circulate those. I'll forward those letters to you to see, but they have gone above and beyond to try to explain or to share with the Water Management District the value of these projects for the whole community. We received a public records request last week related to our lawsuit with Capital City Bank. It's going to require us to get with each of our elected officials. So this week we'll touch base with you and start working on how to get the information that's been asked of elected officials in an appropriate format so that we can forward it to the requester. The local option fuel tax issue has been very time consuming lately, but the city of Gainesville did agree not to vote on the item last Thursday. They gave us until February the 15th to try to work some agreement with the small cities and the smaller cities, the other 8 cities, as we've now, we're changing our terminology. We are meeting this Wednesday at 2 p.m. in Hawthorne to discuss it among city managers, and we're going to try to hammer out something pretty quick and get authorization for the board to submit a recommendation to the city of Gainesville by the 15th. And I'm going to put on the agenda for the next meeting that outside of the allocation issue, that we simply offer public comment to both Alachua County and to Gainesville for consideration in their interlocal. Things like they need to have a public meeting every 2 years to review the allocation, and that we'd like them to enable any other city in Alachua County that wants to be party to the agreement to be a party to the agreement and actually get a letter from our chair nicely making those comments. So keep you posted on that. There is a Board of County Commissioners meeting tomorrow, and they're going to be discussing the wetlands ordinance. That's a countywide wetlands ordinance. Meetings at 5 p.m. Downtown tomorrow. And ask that you all come out and support our position that we would like the ability to opt in, but not mandatory to end.
And bring a friend.
And bring a friend. We have a meeting with Alachua County this Thursday afternoon to discuss their challenge to our annexation and a program where we can work on transfer of roads from the county to us. So I think this will be the second in a series, maybe 6 months worth of meetings before we can come up, hammer out a proposal that we present to you guys. Yeah, so maybe by our joint meeting, we'll actually be somewhere down the road. I'll give the county tons of staff. I mean, yeah, exactly. Yes. I'll give county staff tons of credit for being creative. They walked into our last meeting with a lot of innovative ideas about how maybe we could crack the nut. And things that I hadn't heard them before, their spirit of cooperation seems to be at an all-time high. So just want to share that with you. As a reminder, next Monday we have a tax abatement workshop. It's here at City Hall, and it begins at 6 p.m., not 7, 6 p.m. tax abatement workshop. And my final note would be that we are going to be in Tallahassee on February the 5th and 6th. That's a Monday and a Tuesday. We are going to be championing causes that are important to Newberry with the Florida legislature. If you have any issues or you'd like to travel with us, let me know. Be happy to carry you along. Be happy to give you talking points or attend meetings with you. That concludes my comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. City Attorney?
Done, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Clerk?
Just want to remind and urge our citizens to update their voting information. The forms can be found on our city website here at City Hall at votealachua.com. It's specifically signature updates, something that we don't always think about. And we have 3 positions that are up for election. That's Commissioner Group 1, Commissioner Group 2, and Commissioner Group 3. The qualifying fees are $115. Qualifying period starts February the 12th, Monday, February the 12th at noon, and ends Thursday, February the 22nd at noon. Hours of qualifying are 8 to 5 all other days. We are closed on Fridays. If you have any questions or if I can assist anyone, any potential candidates, please contact the city clerk's office. The candidates packet has been updated on our website and can be published on our website and can be downloaded. I also have them here at City Hall.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Always helpful in that very complex and intimidating process. Does that conclude your comments, Madam Clerk?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Coleman.
I missed the last meeting. I was ill. So, but there's one thing I have. deepest condolences to Dallas and for the passing of his father, from all of our family. And that's all I got.
Commissioner McGehee?
I had the privilege of attending the Newberry-Jonesville Chamber of Commerce and sitting beside Mayor Marlowe when he was announced as the Citizen of the Year by the Chamber. He was pretty surprised, to say the least, but I think it was well deserved. I think he really does serve this community well, and he's really shown great leadership in his role as not only a commissioner but now as the mayor. I just really appreciate all the work that he puts in, because I know it's a lot. So thank you and congratulations.
I appreciate that. Commissioner Farnsworth?
Just my condolences to Dallas also, but that's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Martin?
Just had a question on where we are, timeline on the fire station completion.
Should be done by 2020.
We're wrapping up in the interior. We need a concealment inspection, which will likely come in the next couple of weeks after our electric is finished up. We just have very little to do there. And we are working on the flooring, baseboards, wrapping up the painting. The gentleman's coming to finish the roof panels. Fascia, gutters, downspout, soffit, that's all coming hopefully within the next week or so. Materials on site. We just need the contractor to come out and finish it. And really, it's getting close to wrapping up. I'd say we have to finish doors and hardware. A lot of self-performing stuff now. So we're looking at maybe another month.
Spring ribbon cutting
The
ceremony.
idea is to wait until you have your landscaping in full bloom and blossom for all those pictures and things. You know, Commissioner Farnsworth, did you want to follow?
I was kind of curious, are we doing anything with the AMI, or what's the status of that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we, the FMPA is developing an RFP for us. I'd say they're better than 80% complete, maybe 90% complete. We have a meeting next week to review it with them. I think after that meeting, they'll finalize their RFP. Then we were going to do one more workshop with the commission and do the business case analysis again, make sure it's fresh in everyone's mind. If at the conclusion of that workshop, if the commission says, Mike, go to bid, we're going to go to bid immediately. And in the meantime, we are, is it tomorrow? Tomorrow we're going to GRU, or the day after. We're just... Okay, so meeting on the RFP is Thursday. We're going to GRU to look at a presentation on AMI. So, yes, sir, we're heavily engaged. We're just in RFP development right now.
And does anybody know anything about the smokehouse? Coast Sword, yeah.
I've been in contact with those owners, and they, every time I talk to them, they tell me they are really close. So it's they are always very complimentary of the city, and they've never once said it has anything to do with us. It has to do with their personal business plan. At one point it was they were waiting on the electrical engineer. At one point it was some other contractor that they were working with that was holding them up. You know, I call them about once a month just to check in, because, you know, I'm tired of driving to Chiefland to pick up my sausage. But I mean, it's I get the same. We're 2-3 weeks away every time I talk to them, but it has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with our end. It's always, yeah, we're waiting on this guy. He's working out of here, and you know, we're just having a hard time getting him going. So
That's just one of the questions that people
ask about all the
ask me.
time.
Yeah.
All the time. I get it. That's why I call it once a month, because somebody asks me about it and it reminds me to call them and say, hey, how's it going over there? So, but I always get the same answer. But it's always positive, and it's always, yeah, we're making progress. We're heading that direction. So keep your fingers crossed, you know. Commissioner Barton, we didn't mean to cut you off. Was that the final of your, I thought he was going to piggyback on the fire station. Then we went over to sausage, so. Are you? Yeah, are you good? Commissioner Glanzer?
I was going to add, just to encourage citizens to come to that county meeting tomorrow night on wetland protection regulations. It's really important, and at 5 o'clock. And also congratulations to you, Mr. Mayor, on the chamber recognition. Where you make us proud in our city. Thank you for that.
I appreciate it. It was quite a shock. So, I too want to issue our condolences to Matt and his family, and my family's had you in our thoughts as well. I want to piggyback on the gratitude to this concerned citizens of Newberry and staff that worked so much to put on the MLK celebration. It was a great event. I want to thank Kahuna Backyard. I'm not sure if that name change has come through, but they donated all the food to feed the children at the event. They were there. Commissioner Chestnut came out and gave the keynote address, I think it was, or it was the remembrance speech. It was nice to see him out in the community and being a part of us. I also want to remind folks that if you've heard about the students that formed the PAC called Represent Me, they've been going collecting petitions for single-member districts in the county. We got about a month left on that deadline. So if you're like most folks that I follow up with and talk to about that, and it's been sitting on your desk and it's been something you've been meaning to get to, now is kind of the last chance for you to get to it. So hopefully you can, don't wait for me to coordinate you. If you believe in it, make a few copies. Make sure that the date is changed. If you've got an old copy from 2017, right, put 2018 on it. Go out to your neighbors, get them, make some copies, go out to your neighbors, get them to sign it. Take ownership. This is your county. If you believe in it, work to make it happen. The kids have worked tirelessly for the last 6 months. Every weekend they're somewhere, lots of weeknights they're somewhere. They've worked with businesses. So it's kind of on the citizens of Alachua County at this point to do it or not to do it. So if you want it, if you believe in it, you got to look yourself in the mirror and say, am I willing to do some work to make this happen? They've provided you the opportunity to have a voice. You just got to seize that opportunity. There's a mailing address on it. We've got drop-off centers. Just about every one of the they haven't presented to the city of Alachua yet, but every city they presented to has agreed to have a drop-off center at City Hall. So you can drop them off at Hawthorne, Micanopy, Archer City Hall, Waldo City Hall. You can drop them off here. You can mail them. Frozenberry, RPM Auto. What's the burger place in the city of Alachua? Conestoga's. The list goes on and on of businesses that have agreed to be Big Daddy Guns. So there should be, no matter where you are in the county, somewhere within a 10 to 15 minute drive that you can drop them off if you don't want to pay the postage to mail it. So it's all over the county. They're out there, and we have a month to make it happen. So, like I said, if it's been buried under papers on your desk, now's the time to say, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Let me find that. Let me fill it out. Let me send it in. Let's make it happen. All right? Okay, that will do it for me. And citizens' comments.
As a half citizen, first of all, I just want to thank everybody for the thoughts and condolences this last couple of weeks. My family's really appreciated it. On a work subject, just so the commission is aware, we have chosen a new bank. The city manager and the city clerk and I will be signing the paperwork later this week to open those accounts, and then next week we will gleefully walk into Capital City Bank and close all of our accounts and leave.
What's the new bank?
It's Citizen State Bank.
All right.
Which has a branch in Jonesville. Close by.
Close by.
Got a port.
Nice.
Got a port.
Okay. Other citizen comments? Hearing none, we are adjourned.